Alright, hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a reading update outside in my lovely garden. There's a lot of birds singing and I hope that's not too distracting, but it is really lovely to sit out here. And I'm looking forward to catching up about what I have been reading. Before we get into it, I do want to thank everyone so much for their kind words and comments and prayers about little guy. He's doing really well, and we've seen a lot of doctors, gotten second opinions, and the general consensus is that he will be having a surgery next summer. And while that's really hard to think about that happening kind of so far off in the future, we take a lot of comfort in knowing that he's doing really well right now. He's not in any pain, he's not having any complications or anything in that way. So it does make it better, obviously, to know that, but it is still kind of hard to think about that happening next summer. But in the meantime, I've been distracting myself with lots of good books, and I'm happy to report that April has been a better reading month for me. He's down here chatting away also, so if you hear him, that's what's going on down here. April was a better reading month. March was a very, very kind of low reading month for me. I think I read 3 books. At least 2 of them were middle grade, maybe all 3, so was not reading a lot. And honestly, that was such a bummer because I love middle grade March and I was so excited to read middle grade books, and I just didn't read very much. So I carried it over into April. You'll see that I have quite a few middle grades that I was able to read in April. So I kind of did middle grade April, which is fine. This year I am not worrying about participating fully in reading events, read-alongs, things like that. I want to get to what I get to when I am able to and not feel pressure for my reading in that way. So anyways, let's get started with what I read in April, and I'm going to start with physical books, what I have in front of me now. First up is this lovely edition of Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. Look at how springish, it fits in so well out here. But this is a little bit different than the Elizabeth Gaskell that I've read. This is episodic. We're following these kind of spinster ladies in this little town of Cranford. And each chapter is just kind of its own little episode. And I think I connected less with this format of telling a story. Typically episodic stories are just harder for me to get into. I don't know why, but I think maybe certain parts that I am really invested in that I wish were longer, the story was drawn out a bit more and you got to see more of that. And then there are other sections that I'm okay, this is kind of boring. I wish we could skip ahead. So it's just kind of the pacing in that way is sometimes hard for me. And I definitely felt like that was the case for Cranford. First half I really struggled with. I switched to audio for the second half and that definitely helped. But this definitely was not my most favorite book. I think I gave it 4 stars, but it's probably more like a 3.5 star. My next physical book is the second book in this little bind up of Betsy Tacy, and that is Betsy and Joe. I love the Betsy Tacy series so much. I'm really enjoying my read through of it, but I will say Betsy is kind of driving me nuts in some of these books, and there are definitely some aspects of this one that I kind of struggled with. There's a bit of a will they, won't they situation going on. There's a bit of a love triangle, which I really dislike. Anytime there's a love triangle in a book, I never enjoy it. And in this case, it's very clear that Betsy does not have romantic feelings about one of these boys who very clearly does have romantic feelings about her. And Betsy knows this. She knows that he is falling in love with her. And she knows that she doesn't love him, but she never says anything about it. She just kind of strings him along, and it's really kind of upsetting. I was really upset kind of how that story ended, and it's clear that he was this boy was very impacted by it, and I just thought that whole situation was handled really poorly. But otherwise, I enjoy Betsy. I love her family and just the close-knit kind of group of friends that she has. There's a lot to really love in these stories. But Betsy is kind of driving me nuts sometimes too. So we'll see how the next book goes. The next one, she is traveling through Europe. So we'll see. All right, an audiobook that I absolutely adored, and thank you so much to Kate Howe for talking about this audiobook because it was fabulous, and that is Hummingbird. This is narrated by the author. I definitely recommend going the audiobook route because her narration and her southern accent just add so much to the story. This is a middle grade story of a young girl who has brittle bone disease, so she is in a wheelchair. And she dreams of going to public school and being able to be more normal because she's been homeschooled kind of her whole life up till this point. And she goes to public school. She hears about this mythical hummingbird that can grant wishes. And there's that kind of whole storyline. She makes some friends, and that is really sweet. And then there's also some theater stuff going on. There's just kind of a lot going on in this story, but it all works so well. And the writing is just so whimsical and so poetic, and I just absolutely adored this book. I would highly, highly recommend it. Another middle grade audio that I listened to but enjoyed significantly less was Sweet Home Alaska. This is set during kind of the Depression era. We're following this family that is part of a government program to go and become farmers in remote Alaska. They take a whole bunch of people from like Wisconsin and Minnesota, maybe some other states too, and they go to Alaska, they get land, and in exchange they have to kind of become self-sufficient. And the premise of this sounded like right up my alley. Alaska, kind of Little House vibes to it. But I wasn't as invested in this story, and there was a lot going on. Kind of some different things going on with like trying to grow this massive pumpkin, trying to convince her mother to stay in Alaska. She has some friendships that are forming. And yeah, I liked it well enough, but this wasn't an absolute favorite for me. I read All of a Kind Family, which is one that has been on my TBR for a long time, and I really enjoyed this. It is about a Jewish family in New York City of 4 or 5 girls, and it's really sweet. It's just following their life. There's a librarian that they're really close with, and despite having not a lot of money in the family, there's so much joy in being able to read and check out books from the library. I love books about big families and seeing all of these different sibling dynamics, and this one was a lot of fun. I recommended this book in my spring book recommendations, and that is Dandelion Cottage. And this one is definitely slow. It's a slower book. It takes a little while to get into it. But we're following this group of friends who find this abandoned cottage that they want to use as kind of a playhouse. But in exchange for being able to use it, they need to pull up all of the dandelions that are covering the garden. And so they do that. And they get the keys to the cottage, they fix it up, they take a lot of really good care of it, trying to restore life to this abandoned cottage. And it's just very springish. There's a lot of beautiful nature writing, and it puts you in the mood to do some spring cleaning. Books that are really domestic, and this is definitely that. I'm continuing to make my way through the Mitford series, so I think I talked a little bit about book 1. I don't think I had finished it yet in my last wrap-up, but I absolutely loved book 1, At Home in Mitford, and then I read the second book, A Light in the Window, and I still really enjoyed A Light in the Window. There were definitely some aspects that drove me a little bit nuts. Again, kind of a would they, won't they romance situation, and Father Tim was just really dragging his feet in this relationship, and kind of drove me nuts at certain points. Honestly, just felt like a lot of unnecessary tension at points, things that could have been resolved much simpler, much quicker if the characters had had a conversation. Instead of always assuming the worst of things, I felt like there was so much unnecessary trauma. There was also a plot line with this crazy widow who is trying to come after Father Tim, and that drove me nuts. And then there's cousin Meg, and that whole plot line of a cousin coming to stay for 2 months with him, and is kind of driving him nuts. And in all of these circumstances, I just wish that he would have just like stood up for himself. I wish he would have been a little bit more clear about things and would have saved a lot of trouble. but there is still so much beauty. I love how these characters are really trying to live out their faith, and you see them struggling at times, and it feels very realistic in that way, and I really appreciate that. Patty outside. Yeah. All right, and then last book that I finished is The Luminous Life of Lucy Landry. I have really enjoyed what I've read by Anna Rose Johnson, and I liked this one as well. It takes place on a lighthouse, and we are following this orphan girl who is taken into this family who are lighthouse keepers on this little remote island, and she is very afraid of water because her father drowned in a shipping accident. You learn that very early on, so that's like not a spoiler in any way. And so she is definitely having to kind of confront these fears that she has, just really looking for a family and wanting to be taken in by these people. And there's beautiful, beautiful writing. I love that her books feel like reading a classic. I do still think I preferred her debut novel, The Star That Always Stays, but this one was really good as well. I absolutely love a lighthouse setting, so that was a lot of fun to read about. All right, that is it for what I have finished reading lately. Currently, I am listening to Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, the Nadia May audiobook, and I'm just absolutely loving it. There is something really, really nice about revisiting a book where you are already familiar with the story and can kind of just settle in and let the story kind of wash over you. So that is what I'm listening to and just absolutely adoring it. I am wanting to continue the Mitford series, but I think I have a little bit of a hold for book 3. I think I have like a 2-week wait. So once that book comes in, I will read that. In the meantime, I started The Young Stepmother by Charlotte Mary Yonge. I want to read more Victorian books this year. Haven't been off to a great start, but like, that's okay. I had a baby, like it's fine. But I am feeling invigorated this spring to read some more Victorian books. So that is one I want to read, and I'm enjoying it so far. Only a couple chapters in, but I feel like I already have my bearings a little bit better than I typically do in Charlotte Mary Yonge books at this point, so that's exciting. And continuing on with Betsy and the Great World is my next one, so I am making my way through that. Well, I haven't even started it, so I'm going to start that at some point. And I think that is basically it for what I'm currently reading. Let me know what you have been up to, what you've been reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!